Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. We've got a packed stage here with industry experts, and I will attempt to do my best at a proper introduction. But it's 7 o'clock, it's after work, we're not on the clock, so you can chill out and grab a wine, or you can have a sneaky little, something in here. So cheers to everyone who's finished for the day. And this is an episode of... Let me bring it up. Here we go. I'm an underpaid and overworked architect. Get me out of here. So there was a theme there, guys, right? There was a theme. There was a theme where this came around. So Julia is the brains of this meeting tonight. However, there is an agenda. We are going to talk about architecture. We are going to talk about the state of the architecture industry, but also talk about our journey as well. So for anyone that's not familiar and is wondering what this Welsh I can't even speak, rambling maniac is talking about on his live stream, is that I actually came from architecture. I'm still involved in architecture, but working in a role that is not conventional. I didn't get my part 3. And I've got a really talented ensemble of people from all around the industry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly say everyone's names, and then it'll be awesome before we all get too blotted. If we could do an introduction, and then we can just take it from there. So I'm Stephen Drew. Enough about me. We will move on here. So I am joined by Julia Adler, who is Senior Design Manager at Mace, Barrett, Pankhanian, Senior Design Manager at Lang O'Rourke. Wow, we're all over the place here. We're all these different companies. Giorgio Laporto, who is BIM Manager at Mace. Giorgio, I was trained in Revit in 2014, just saying, if you ever need a pair of hands. And last but not least, the fantastic Michael Hudson, who is digital building expert, very interesting, at Turner Townsend. So everyone, welcome to the stage, first of all. Just a virtual round of applause. There's a lot of introductions. So maybe in your own words, we can go around kind of clockwise here. So Barrett, you're next on the screen to me. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself then?
Do I have to? Yeah, I guess
yeah, go on, short and sweet. It'll be all right.
Design manager now at Lang O'Rourke. Left Mace. Well, I was previously an architectural manager at Mace 2 weeks ago. So, hence being called into this by Julia. And worked in architectural practices for a fair bit before that as well. So I've been around the block a little bit, and here I am.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. I moved away from my chairs. We'll have a elephant noise. So thank you. Right. Just imagine we're in the jungle. Yeah. Michael, you're next on the stage here. Do you want to tell us about all the things digital?
I mean, steady on. The night's young. So I'm still an architect somehow. I said on the warm up that it's a bit like being an alcoholic. You can never stop being an architect, really. I qualified 10 years ago plus, more than that. But ended up moving into kind of digital BIM, all that kind of stuff. Now I find myself at Turner & Townsend, which everyone on the call and listening might actually think of as a project management company, but actually they have something in the order of about 150 people who specialize in digital consultancy, which is a very broad spectrum, but includes lots of things around BIM and lots of other things like that. So it's actually a really interesting space that I find myself working now. It does require me to think like an architect. I just don't do any drawings, which is, I'm not very good at drawing. So that's good.
Well, that's the best part about being an architect, right?
Yeah. Enough about me.
No, that's perfect. That's excellent. So we'll have a cheeky crocodile noise. Well, that was rubbish. Let's get some bats or something. There we go. Now, Giorgio, apart from being appalled by my awful Photoshop skills on this thumbnail, sorry guys, it's been a while since I've been in architecture. Yeah. Oh, come on, right?
Okay, but it was okay.
Well, yeah. Well, tell me about. So, what are you up to then at the moment, Giorgio? Tell us about yourself.
So many exciting things. No, BIM manager at Maze. To be fair, I'm quite new. Maze has joined like about 6 months ago. But I've always been in the architectural industry before that. So I worked as an architectural designer for about 4.5 years, and then fully moved into BIM in the past like 3 years. And yeah, I mean, like that's definitely a path I'm going for now. Yeah, now I'm doing my new experience at Mace, which is great. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Brilliant. Well, I might pick your brains on some Photoshop lessons and BIM lessons
Please,
later.
please do.
I need them. I'm out of date.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
fine.
was a disaster when I was on Revit from ages ago. But enough about that. And we've got the fantastic Julia, who is basically like the pillar of this whole live stream. So thank you, Julia, in particular for setting it up. But enough about that, even though I am grateful. Tell us all about yourself then.
Well, Stephen, thank you for having me here. Yes, it was my idea to pull so many people in. Photoshop, not my idea, just to, state that straight away. So I work as a senior B manager at Mace. Maybe worth mentioning that Mace is a construction company, but we have also a department of consultancy. So that's where we are based together with Giorgio. Before that, I was working as well in architecture background, and I worked in Denmark before moving to UK. So that's where I studied as well. So I have a little bit of perspective of how UK architecture practices compared to Scandinavia. Right. So yeah, that's my background.
Excellent. Thank you. And so there was like, when we were setting this up for tonight, right? I know I kind of went off tangent on the whole I'm a celebrity, get me out of your theme, but there was a point in it, right? Because we're all sort of here, maybe like a band of entrepreneurs or a band of degenerates, whatever way you want to look at it, but we've all kind of gone away from mainstream architecture. And so I think that typically when you study architecture, right, when I went into it, it's to become a fully qualified architect. But as you touched upon as well, Yulia, in terms of preparing for what we want to talk about today, I think the state of architecture is not really what I envisioned when I studied it. And there's a lot of good skills there, which I love. But basically, along that journey at some point, I didn't get qualified as a Part 3 architect. And I went off into a recruitment career because basically, guys, I used to be the cheeky chap in the office. Any excuse not to do Revit, Giorgio, I would have driven you mad with all my files and stuff. Take the bins out. I would do it. Anything to talk. There was a director. I'd catch him in the kitchen and go, Richard, how's your kids? Talk 10 minutes. Anything to get out of doing the actual work. But being honest with you, right? But it's not really in my head what I signed up for. Although there were some things about it I enjoyed. I tended to go into a career that I felt was more in line with my skills, which is chatting, right? So I would love to know a little bit about your thoughts on, first of all, because you've made that transition. There's a lot of architects that have maybe thought about it, and we can go later on, as Michael, you talked about, is the grass always greener? And we'll unpick that later. But we do see people who are interested in this topic. So maybe, Julia, I can pick on you a bit because I know you a little bit more. You can tell us about why you moved away from the traditional route of architecture. And maybe you can tell us a lot about your thoughts on the architecture industry as it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm not an architect originally. I studied architecture technology and construction management in Denmark. So because in Denmark it's like split into two different disciplines. So you have architects that deliver up to planning, and then project gets handed over to people like me that do all the technical bits and through stage. If we talk Reba terms, that would be stage 4 or 5 until the handover. So all the technical boring drawings, that's me really. And architects, they are treated like artists, so they would do like a blob and they give it to me and say, just build it. Clients really like it, looks pretty. Client buys the picture, not the technical drawings, right? So that's what I would be doing, all the technical bits, calculations, all that kind of stuff. And as part of that, we've been trying to do BIM right straight from the uni. And that was like, I don't know, it's embarrassing to say, 10 years ago. But yeah, so that was back then. And I got invited to work here for local practice. I was like, okay, let's try it. I was still at uni. I joined the practice here in UK, and straight away I realized, oh my god, it's nothing like Denmark in terms of the split. So here in UK, I've been asked to do planning drawings and like concept drawings, which I was never trained to do. I was like, okay, I can try it. And then architects, poor souls, were drawing ceiling drawings and like all the technical stuff. I was like, why are you doing it? We can swap. We should swap. So yeah, and somehow I got dragged into BIM just because I was quicker than others, I guess, at Revit, and you know, understand standards a little bit more than others, because in Denmark they have this very specific technical standards, or how to store, name, and everything like that. It's sort of like BIM level 2 or ISO standards, but Danish version, and 10 years ago. And this actually really helps, because when you start to work, you don't really need to ask your line manager anything. You know where everything's safe, because everything's the same. Everything should be named the same. Yeah, so working here, it's just naturally happened that I got dragged into BIM, and now I'm here. You know,
There you
sort
go.
of like alcoholism as well, I guess. You can't
Really?
You know,
Wow,
get out.
that is some comparison. Going into BIM is like being an alcoholic.
I mean,
There you go.
There is. I mean, I did mention to you guys that I've deleted my Twitter account, but at least I think I had. There was lots of these kind of. There was the UK BIM crew, which was like a handle that basically was, "Do you want to meet up for a drink?" And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you know, BIM beers and all this kind of stuff, and it became a kind of a little clique in its own right, which was great. And actually, a lot of the guys on there are fantastic. I you know, happily go for them a beer any time they sent me a message. Please send me a message, guys. But you know, at the same time, I think it also became a little bit too cliquey in some respects, and it became quite difficult for anyone who didn't want to become like a full BIMmer to find out something. It was like, it kind of became a slightly cottage industry, UK, very focused. We're our little team of people. I think younger people like Yulia and Giorgio are kind of thankfully breaking down those barriers, because there's a lot of people kind of my age who are like really kind of entrenched in really specific kind of ways of doing things now. And in some respects, it makes it harder for anyone thinking about going into this specialism to really do it, because it's like, it's almost kind of really confusing. And actually lose it in my now role that I do, I get a lot of feedback from kind of clients saying, you're just talking in acronyms. I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, what does that make you look clever? Because I don't know. Like, it really.
Yeah, it's so true.
I've got a master's degree at Oxford. You know, I finished with it first in my class, and I have no clue what you're talking about. And
but that's the expertise. Expert can explain this complicated thing in 10 minutes, right? So yeah.
No, you're right. And so I think that's kind of the field of play that BIM has found itself in for like the last decade, where it's just shifting now. And I think there's like a massive opportunity for not just architects, but people within construction who like technology to move into this kind of specialist kind of area, is because in some respects it's becoming like the next big thing. I'm not going to quote like actual statistics, but McKinsey and all others are kind of are saying that they predict by the end of this decade that there's going to be massive influxes in smart building investment, and it's going to be kind of the next big thing for investors to put money into, and therefore the market moves. So all the clients, they all want to keep up with their rivals. They all need experts in-house. They all need projects delivered to new specifications. They need all of these things attached to certain buzzwords, and they want to try and achieve it, and then they want accreditation, and there's all these kind of supporting things. and there isn't actually anyone to do it. There isn't the skill within, certainly in the UK, to do all of that work. So I think there's a big opportunity for everyone to kind of move into that space. But, you know, at the same time, I've made it sound very corporate and not very fun as well.
No, but you're right. 5 corporate banks in America announced in their, like, you know, yearly plans is, you know, improve facility management, and that's where the digital twin comes in. So,
well, you said it. Haha, I didn't want to say it.
Well, I tell you what, right? We've got a few people that have already having a few champagnes and stuff. So Elena in the audience says we're having a glass of wine. So that's true. That is a live stream. So if you've got a question for anyone here in particular, then you can, as long as it's not too rude, as long as it's not anything too spicy that we can't say. Other than that, we'll bring the question up on screen. What I was going to say, Michael, is that I've met like 4 people who claim to be the person that invented the hashtag BIM beers. And you know what I mean? Everyone thinks they invented it. And I've had a BIM beer before, and that was at BIM Show Live in 2014. So I'm showing my age now as well. And that was quite a big event. But really, while you were talking about that, you're talking about property and all this stuff as well. So Barrett, you're here and you're a senior design manager. Now, when I worked in the last recruitment place where I worked, I led one of the architecture teams. It was in a real estate company. And I had a lot of architects come to me talking about wanting to go for multidisciplinaries, wanting to go to places such as where you work, you know, moving towards that area. So tell me, how did you get the bug and think, do you know what, I'm going to pursue this and go into design management?
To be honest, I didn't really target it like that.
Oh.
I think my entire career, it's been a journey of understanding things that I don't really enjoy, opposed to realizing things that I do enjoy. And so I've kind of gone from job to job, learning things and absorbing information and kind of falling into blatantly, absolutely. No, 100%. I definitely fell into it. And I think the more I've kind of been within the construction industry, the more I've realized that what I really want to do is get things built. And one thing that really paralyzed me and frustrated me to no end was the endless feasibility studies you do as an architect.
Oh, really? Some people love those, huh? You know, that's one of the things, isn't it?
It's a bugbear for me because it's just speculative design.
Yeah.
And you're rehashing speculative design over and over again with no real purpose, because if the goal is to obtain planning, then you can do it much simpler than doing a very detailed planning application.
Amazing. Already offended so many people.
No.
Every front-end architect is just frantically typing here.
So I think it was just then the journey of like, right, so the industry is massive and there's so much to do. Where can I, and kind of almost like yourself, Stephen, like, you know, where can I utilize my skills better?
Yeah.
And I think the allure of money, to be honest, I'm a sellout, blatantly. I mean, Mike, when we spoke yesterday, actually, you said it as well. I've got a mortgage. I've got a little kid. Like, I need to pay the bills. It's a reality, right? I can't chase the dream of being a star architect my whole life and designing Zaha Hadid-esque or Foster-esque or whatever have you. And I don't mean to diss that, but you know, there's a reality to my situation that I just needed to address. And this kind of, I still feel like I'm really lucky. I get to wake up every morning, do a job that I love to do, be involved in an industry that I love to be involved in, and get paid for it, which is great. And I don't think a lot of people can say that nationally. And so I feel really grateful for that, opposed to be bitter or resentful, you know? It also allows me, you know, doing what I do, I get to engage with people like yourself, Michael, people like Julia, you know, I get to engage with all the other things I love to do, whether it be BIM, whether it be the artistic design aspect of it. I get to touch upon all those things. Yes, I don't necessarily get to control those as much as I maybe want to, but that's okay. At least I can interface with those people and have those conversations. And arguably on larger schemes, I get to work with the client more directly than an architect maybe would, and influence that design and the strategic positioning of a project more. So I get my little kicks out of it. I think you're right. You know, you can never stop being an architect, and I don't think anyone should. I think being an architect brings so many skills to it, but I think people should exploit those skills more, and they should maybe be less afraid to step away from a drawing board and more into other fields within the industry.
Well said. I just noticed while we talk, if you saw my light going, it's because I didn't plug the power plugs in. So at some point it will go dark, but I don't care. We're just going to go anyways. But very good point there, and I agree with you. And it's interesting that sometimes, especially, I don't know whether it's like the way we were all brought up, but I don't know about you, but my parents has been like, you can't ask people about money, you can't talk about money, and then there's almost like this, like, oh gosh, talking about money is improper. But I actually think it's part of being a professional, and actually it's okay to talk about higher salaries.
Speak about money.
And we should do.
Money.
And actually, what was the first thing that
we don't work as a charity, right? Like no one's running a charity here. Of course you should talk about money, and that shaming of salary shaming malarkey. Yeah, no.
You're not a real architect if you're in it for the money. Well, it's like, well, we've got an energy crisis coming up. Do you know what I mean? And I'm cost me 50 quid on this podcast just now for the background. But that's my choice. But I need the money, right? So, but it's about it. It's important, isn't it? It's like we want job satisfaction, but at the same time, there are constraints in reality as well. What I was going to say, and just to kind of bring it around before we open this up, because Georgie, I've got a confession, and you're probably going to think it's a good thing the way I went, because actually, when I was thinking of leaving architecture, one of my bestie mates, where I used to work at EPR, was the BIM coordinator, and he was this cool Australian guy, very, very good at his jobs and stuff. And I went with him for lunch, and I was like, mate, I don't think I can do this. And he's like, you're good at talking, you should look into sales or something. But I was like, but maybe I should do a BIM coordinator, because that's like an escape for me as a part two. And he was like, no, mate, I don't think you should do BIM. You're not the right person for it, because attention to detail is not my thing. But Georgia, I'm sure you have more attention to detail than me. I would love to know how you became an awesome BIM manager, doing all the great stuff that you're doing.
I mean, I had a very interesting journey, to be fair. I always knew I wanted to be in architecture. I moved here in the UK when I was, I think, 17, and I turned 18 here. So I was like, I had to learn the language, but I knew I was going to study architecture at some point. But when I knew I didn't like to design per se, but I wanted to get a degree. But out of all the different courses, I found a course that was interior architecture. That wasn't necessarily looking at, facade and more like technical, but was more like about the experience. I mean, it was an interesting degree. And then I started in a practice as an architectural designer, which I've spent like 4 years there. But straight away from my first month in there, I've been thrown into this BIM project. They were like, okay. So automatically I became the BIM coordinator, and at the time I had no idea what BIM meant and didn't even know how to use Revit per se. But there was one BIM manager in this company. I always thought what she was doing was great. I was like, that's actually really interesting. So after I think like 2 years of like trying to, in architecture we do design over and over again, same design options, and decisions are never like easy. And I really didn't like that. I don't like to design per se. I like to make sure things work. So I get the information there, this can be built. So that was my thinking. So I did trying to start like looking into change the path. I knew I didn't want to stay. I didn't want to progress into like a master in architecture and design. So I've done a master in construction project management focusing on BIM, which gave me more insight on the standards and so on. And in the meantime, I managed to change the actual role from an architectural designer to a BIM coordinator within the company. And it was great. I've learned so much, progressed more into where is BIM and modeling to information management. It was the whole pack. And I love the idea of coordinating information and so on. That was actually really exciting, which then led me to Maze, because I always wanted to work for a company with everyone has so much experience, you can learn from others. Because in my previous company, I was basically the only one doing BIM, so I wasn't really learning much, and I knew I had so much to learn. But that was basically it. I knew from my side, after working 3-4 years on the same building over and over again, I was like, I don't think I can do this forever. I was like, I want something that actually makes. I mean, I do respect architects besides crazy hours and so on, but I knew that that wasn't my call. And then, yeah, from masters to now, I'm just like Bharat. I'm actually really enjoying what I'm doing it, and I mean, like, I keep learning every day.
I think, Stephen, it's perfect time to talk about the culture in architectural firms. As we established now, everyone worked at some point in their lives in architecture practice. How was that, guys? Did you ever work overtime?
Who didn't?
I mean,
that's included in your
Was that paid?
When
We
did
knew
we
it
work
was coming.
overtime? You know, like that's the reality of it. I mean, I think we all found our own kind of like cadence. Like the last kind of architectural role I did, I was living in zone 1, but I was still getting to the office at like 7:30 because like it was almost like a mind trick I was playing on everyone else. Like, you know, put in like the overtime before anyone else has arrived, so that you've just done more than everyone by 6:00, and then you're like, you can just not go home, but just kind of muck about really, and kind of make it look like it was really easy. And I think there's a lot of this kind of, that's a kind of an element of that's associated to, everyone knows they're going to do overtime, so then you try and make everybody feel like you're less bothered about it than everybody else as well, which is a kind of a weird thing that I don't know that other professions have done.
Yeah, so if it's under pressure, you cannot leave on time, right?
Oh, yeah.
You feel bad because everyone else is still staying.
See, this is something that's really puzzled me about architecture, right? Through the academic journey, that through whatever stages you've been, whether it be part 1, part 2, part 3, whatever, I think it's irrelevant. Most people who've done part 1 will probably get this point. You know, when you're studying, I think particularly outside of London, it's a very family-esque feel, I think, studying architecture. Everyone's very supportive, everyone's there for you because everyone's on this journey. You go into practice and it becomes like this narcissistic, conservative manifesto, which is like totally weird because, you know, architects are generally very liberal and leftish, and then it swings all the other way. And I've never really got that. And actually, one of the things that it's so imbued within the culture. And I think that's what's fundamentally wrong with it. University shouldn't be encouraging people to work stupid hours. Actually, discipline and efficiency should be taught. And I think without that, then people automatically expect, oh, I've done this for 5 years. I've worked 24/7 for 5 years to get my undergrad and my postgrad. And well, that's what I need to do in profession. And that's not what you should do in profession.
I think on the university ticket, it's a bit of an odd one because very much married up to not being paid enough money as a junior architect. I did a side gig tutoring. I basically didn't take it. I didn't have any holiday because I couldn't afford it anyway. So I used my holiday allowance to teach at university as a tutor, and kind of looking at it from the other side as an external tutor who wasn't in charge of the way things were run. A lot of the schools were like, we have been given an edict from high above that we have to bring in as many students as possible and monetize. And if it's such an intensive, resource-hungry course, you know, architecture versus business studies, the people leaving have lower salaries, so they pay off their loans slower, blah, blah, blah. They're less likely to do postgrads. And so they make their money from dropouts, which sounds terrible, basically.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, big time. So it's nail the students, basically. From that, it's literally cannon fodder from that point on, because they're already signed on. Get them in, you know, roast them for a month, and you've already got like, you know, $4,000 in the bank, and you know, it sounds. That's why I ended up quitting, because I just got so fed up with this kind of.
I think there's a cultural shift. I mean, so I'm starting to work with the University of Westminster as a mentor for Part 3 candidates starting their Part 3, But there is definitely, you know, within the academic stuff there, you know, I don't want to broad brush and say all universities are evil, you know, and they're doing the wrong thing. There's definitely a message of wanting to increase collaboration, get people to work together, work collaboratively, especially going into the profession, right?
Well, yeah, totally. I mean, I think
it is Wilfred. It is Wilfred.
Yeah, it is
right.
Wilfred. So Wilfred was my part 3 mentor.
And mine.
The first year we did it. Absolute legend, that guy.
He is.
Never quite sure where he's looking, and if you've met him, you know what I mean.
I hope he's not watching this.
Wilfred is a brilliant man, and so I actually failed the first time I took part 3. I was like ultra, you know, like it's all about just churning and doing the bare minimum. And I actually failed the first time I took it. And then Wilfred became my mentor, and he was like, "You got this all wrong. Like you have no idea what you're doing," and really kind of set me straight and actually kind of put me on a course to stop being an architect. But you know, I think but he, you know, there's very few people who actually say it like it is within architecture. I think that's kind of the real kind of takeaway. It's all like either let's do academia and it's like it's brilliant and you'll be the greatest designer the world has ever known and you'll have infinite rich friends with lots of money to spend on your ideas, or you'll have a successful business that just people will turn up and give you lots of work and you won't have to do massive hours and become a sociopath in order to succeed. And he was a very unique voice that kind of actually said, "I've run my own practice." I think probably one of his funniest stories was he said, never make family your own client. He refitted his house and then almost immediately got a divorce.
I can believe that.
Because of that. And he had lots of those kind of anecdotes that would just made actually working as a career within architecture quite an interesting thing, like quite a storied man. It made you interested in kind of getting involved again. I'm glad he's still doing it. I didn't realize he was still doing it. But,
I think he's leading or co-leading the course at Westminster. But yeah, no, he is, and I think people like Wilfred is what academia is missing. To be honest, like the more people who say it as it is, and it's not to scare people off being an architect. Like I think actually it does the opposite. It will either drive you to be that architect even more, but with your eyes open. Yeah, and actually demanding and knowing your own worth. I think that's what it gives.
While we're speaking about this, I was thinking, was anyone actually surprised when the Bartlett report came out here? You know, that was a big hoo-ha, open secret. I mean, I was, when I read it, I was like, yeah, I've been told this by a lot of people that have gone to the Bartlett. But back to what you were both saying, Barrett and Michael, that's kind of the precedent of some architectural universities, and that's the ethos of, you know, long hours, enduring hardships. And then is it like that in the industry? Some places. I'm always surprised. I mean, I know, Yulia, you want to talk about average salaries in the bit, and we will go on to that. And I have a lot of anecdotal salaries, and you can tell me if they feel right or not. But
well, as a recruiter, I'm sure you have.
I kind of got a good gist, right? And they're basically not high enough to pay the energy bill next January, right? In essence. However, isn't it mad, though, that basically when you graduate from uni, you get plonked into an architecture practice and you don't really know the culture of the architecture practice properly till you get there. Then I always find it interesting that when you're a part 1, especially, you get plonked onto whatever role is on a team, which is a sector, which then defines your earlier career in the sector. What software you use can then hinder, you know, your experience and getting another job, especially like if you're on a Vectorworks project, then hey, good luck trying to get on Yulia's team on a BIM level 2 project at the start, right? So you kind of like get plonked down in industry, and I don't know about you guys, but at the time I felt like I should be grateful. I was lucky to get this job because you have this weird again architecture thing going on. And when I got a job, I was like, oh, I've got a job. I'm one of the lucky few. So, I mean, what's unpacking all that? Does that sound crazy, or can anyone relate to that scenario early in your career?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like dumb luck that, you know, the practice I worked in decided that they were going to teach me Revit and then I'm suddenly like just magically ahead of half of the industry in terms of knowing the tool that everyone else needs to know.
Well, yeah, you see, that's the problem. Universities should set you ahead of the industry, not the companies.
It's difficult though,
right?
because it's you can teach, if you teach every single tool and every eventuality, what you're going to do, you're just going to have a bunch of people that are not very good at anything in particular, and that's the real stuff.
Well, you know,
you don't do
that's how universities compete as well between each other. So.
I mean, a question to you guys, actually. Sorry to kind of do you think studying architecture taught you how to be an architect?
Oh no.
Ooh.
No.
I'm not an architect. I'd say.
Well, even construct. Julia, it's a little bit of an unfair question to you, but
yeah.
I think
from my experience, anyway. I think yes, definitely yes. From the first day, I was just shown where's my computer and my desk is. That's all. That's all I needed. Yeah. So I'm quite lucky that I picked that specifically that university. And amazing that they taught me Revit at 10 years ago, right? When I came there, I was like, oh, I know AutoCAD and SketchUp. They looked at me like, girl, forget about it. And that was 10 years ago, guys. So,
but it's still, there's still a degree of luck in this. I mean, the university I went to taught ArchAdemia, and everyone just kind of rather snotty-nosed kind of laughed at the guy teaching it. His name is David Nicholson Cole, and he's quite infamous in the industry as well, actually. He was absolutely passionate about it. BIM like 25 years ago, and people were kind of just laughing at him like, "You're a nutcase. This has got nothing to do with architecture." And you can be so far ahead of the curve that you are wildly out of fashion that you're just deemed as just a nutcase. And I think there's that problem as well, in that sometimes it goes back to your point, Barrett, about like being this kind of weird conservative, like in this desire to be so innovative and so driving that you actually end up with like quite a lot of sheep that people are kind of copying each other and like trying to play as safe as possible, really polishing kind of not anything in particular, and anything outside of that immediate kind of idea of what that should be is thrown out and deemed as ludicrous. As a side story, when I started going down the kind of BIM route, I went out for a meal with some people that were still following the design route, and they probably one of the ugliest things about architecture is that when people are really kind of almost evangelistic about working for design companies, if you do anything else, if you meet them for a meal or something, they're actually really rude to you. Like, they're actually really rude.
What are you thinking? Are you going crazy? Like, why would you give it up?
Why would you waste all of your training on like a job that pays twice, you idiot? I'd like to pay for my meal. Would you like me to pay for yours? Because you look like you have a is what I said to them. And that's it's kind of that's odd cliqueiness that exists within. It's like a zero-sum fallacy of architecture.
But touching upon that before we open up again, do you think though that there's like that old age looking of architecture? Like, I always use the analogy of, it reminds me of sometimes like Gordon Ramsay, where it's like, to be the best you must suffer. And I think in architecture, it's like, you're gonna get a frying pan thrown at you, and we know Gordon Ramsay definitely done that right. But I felt like there was an element of like that. A real architect suffers, and suffer financially, suffer hours and all this to get the building up. And that, I think that romantic notion has been shifted, especially the more and more further we go. I mean, it's 2022 and university rates are high, rent is high, electricity is high. I don't know how much suffering you can go for this poetic vision of what an architect is. I mean, does anyone feel like that here? I mean, Giorgio, you were pretty like passionate about earlier. Do you feel?
I feel like suffering should be part of it at the early stage, just because you're
learning, right?
Hold on. Wait.
Where's it?
I need to be fair, because I've personally never been against I've never been against doing overtime, especially when I want to take my time to do things correctly, right? And I want to make sure everything is done correctly. Although it's gonna be, it's a problem when it becomes like constant thing, when you feel sorry to leave late. But I feel like the stress I had on my first couple of years of work was because I was still learning, but later on I've mastered some tasks that did allow me to live like on time and just be less stressed. But yeah, I feel like the suffering should be, I mean, I don't know if suffering is the correct definition, but I feel like that is probably like necessary.
But how about your, work-life balance? I don't think by staying late every day makes you more efficient or productive,
Well,
right? Your productivity falls, right? So
I feel like from my experience, I was blessed. I mean, yes, I was doing overtime, but so was everyone else. So it was always, everyone was always in the office. There was always very like a nice atmosphere, and it wasn't like constant. It was always like convenient time. Like every time in summer, you're staying late, so I couldn't really enjoy much. But it was stressful, but it made it easier by knowing that everyone, like my team, was with me. There was so much support. But again, it didn't make it right. I absolutely hated like the idea that I had to stay at work until midnight almost every day. But again, so I had to find an escape.
As they say, at work you're replaceable, at home you're not, right? So
Julia's like boss lady here right now, is that everyone's replaceable.
I'm just against overtime.
I think that's the mentality that plagues the industry, though, isn't it? That is fundamentally within the construction industry, not just architecture. I think within the industry, that's what plagues it, is that everyone made to feel like or feels like a bloody number.
And they have to stay late. Yeah. So why is that? Why is it in architecture we feel pressure to stay late? Why when we sign up for a job, we don't really account into, okay, how long is actually going to take us to design this thing? Do you guys know where's the root problem?
I think I've got a controversial opinion on this.
Right? Ooh,
I think it's mildly controversial, but I think it comes to the roots of where the architecture industry started from. So studying architecture, me started studying architecture in the early 2000s, relatively early 2000s. The demographic of people who study architecture was pretty consistent, being middle class, white, fairly affluent, or their parents were fairly affluent, right? And people with a similar background like me, it was pretty marginal. And I think that in turn leads to the issues you have in practice, because you don't need that financial independence necessarily to exist within the real world. And actually you can exist being a professional suffering artist.
Professionally suffering artist. There we go.
Well, opposed to just a suffering artist, you're a suffering artist with a credential, maybe.
With a big safety net. Yeah.
I don't mean that. I don't mean to.
No, I think you're right. I think there comes a kind of point, a realization point, that unless you've got connections, or you're very good at making those connections, or you went to the right school, you're not going to have your own business that's going to be largely successful in architecture, because statistically, the vast majority of architecture firms are sole practitioners or very small, and they exist upon doing houses and small projects for people who will only ever do one architecture project in their entire life. So who are you going to go with? Some rando, or someone that you've known your entire life to work on a project for you? That's the way it works. So it's only that kind of very small percentage of kind of professional business level architecture, firms above 50 people that have to go out there and operate like a real business and go and generate work in competition environment. And the thing is that they hoover up all the cheap resource of people who don't have those connections. I recollect the last financial crash, and I imagine we were all kind of working there about that kind of time. There was a huge influx of people that came to London from Spain and Italy in particular. They would take anything because they were working as nannies and like working in Costa. And it was like they would rather use their degree for any money than do that. So companies naturally took advantage of that. And that meant that anyone graduating was moving into a really, really overloaded environment with people getting paid joke salaries. And
yeah, Steven, do you remember that time? Can you pull up some like numbers?
Yeah.
What was the
Well,
average?
I can. Well, again, this is not going to be where you want to be happy with this as the thorough BIM digital lead that you are. Is I don't have any facts, but I do. I was there firsthand when Michael said I was a part one looking for a job in the 2009 recession, and I can tell you factually that a small architecture practice, which is doing well for design now, I interviewed with the two directors, and one of the directors, I'll keep it anonymous, but I'll tell you the truth. He said to me, he was like, so if we offer you a position, how would you feel about it being an internship where it would be unpaid? And I looked and I was like, I can't live on that. And the other director kind of was like, whoa, you're being a little bit cheeky to the other director. But they were setting up their business and he was testing to see if I would work unpaid, which is exactly what Michael said. And I couldn't do it. And
is this legal?
I don't. Well, now there's more scrutiny on it, but unpaid internships were around, and now with like Game of Thrones, we got the shame bell, shame. Only starting now, though. Only the conference is starting now. But that happened, and then I remember I had 2 job offers, and one was for 20,000, and the other one was for 13. And I remember when the 13 in London, it was just like, I mean, it was difficult then. Imagine now, it would just be insanity. And of course, I went for the £20,000 job. But there was a point there, maybe, like what Michael was alluding to, of imagine I was like, right, I'm not getting any job offers. What do? Do I work unpaid and work part-time in like Waitrose or Tesco's or whatever, just to get in the door? Which is exactly what, as well, Mike, you talked about when you got this amazing overseas talent who are qualified. Some people come here, they can't even get a job. You know, so it kind of has this weird area.
High demand, and there was a lot of baseline people that could do, speculative design. And actually, reality was there was very little demand. The clients weren't asking for work. You were doing lots of loss leader work to try and get them interested. There were very few actual proper paying jobs out there, or very late paying things. I mean, in the recession, that particular one, I found myself working in China for 6 months, which was an experience because I couldn't speak a word of Chinese. But like, and a lot of people did that just to try and keep getting some involvement in the industry and not just coming straight out of 5 years of studying and just canning it immediately. But you come out of it and you take stock, and as the industry comes back again, you say, right, okay, what we're going to do now? And then a lot of businesses were like, well, we're just paying off massive loans we took out. We can't afford to pay you. And it was kind of a lot of friends kind of then slowly just started to quit, actually. And I've got a friend who's tuning in from Sri Lanka, believe it or not. And he's he trained same year as me at same university, and now he basically just does Revit technician work a couple hours a day and then surfs the rest of the day. So he's got the balance just right. Like he's got just enough money to go surfing and uses those skills. So like I'm quite envious of him, actually. But I think there's so many other people of incredibly talented are gone. Once you make the decision to leave, you never come back, do you? It's that's it.
I agree.
Yeah, that's true. You keep saying to yourself, I can always come back, but
now
reality.
You want
it's too much of a compromise, isn't it? It's too much of a compromise to go back.
Yeah, while we were talking, we talked a little bit about overtime. We talked about this stuff, and there was a question that came in from Nicholas on LinkedIn who said, is there less overtime in design management and project management, and or BIM? Is overtime paid while working on the contractor side? Now, this kind of is where I should have gone earlier, and I had these all typed up, Michael, and I messed it up by not bringing them up. Is the grass always greener? I mean, this is a very good question, saying basically like, look, moving into BIM management or something else, or design management, are the hours left or are they paid overtime? So we don't need to talk about specific numbers, but in general, I'm going to quickly tell everyone about me. So I didn't enjoy working long hours in architecture. I hated doing it. And that, ironically, at the time, I would think any overtime, I didn't want to do it. I'd actively avoid it. Now I set up my own business, or even in recruitment, when I started getting into it, I was getting into my own business. I would do those hours naturally. So, you know, it's a contradiction myself to how I feel about that. And that's why I don't recommend people set up their own businesses unless they're insane, which I fall in that category. And so I've done my own business.
I see. Yeah, well, from working at architectural practice, I can say my team, the BIM team, will be leaving, 5 sharp. And that's it. Like, we can stay later once in the blue moon if architects please us. Please, we need to issue models. Please wait until I finish it. And you're like, okay, wait. And you wait just because they are still working, finishing something. So, but other than that, no, you don't have to. Like, why would you? So, yeah. BIM team in architecture practices was more of like this elite team. No one really understands what they're doing, but this is like this elite people that live on time, don't work overtime. Once I got asked in the lift, so what do you actually do? But like, just another architect. I'm like, I'm just here hanging around with you guys. Nothing much.
You're helping out.
Yeah.
So is it like that then in terms of, so Georgia, I know this is a bit of a rigged question because you kind of tripped up when we met before. Yeah. I think Julia dobbed you in that you've been working overtime. So it's not just an architecture
that was
thing.
That was before joining Maze. Before, I mean the difference between Julia's architectural BIM team. When I transitioned to BIM coordinator, I was still working crazy hours because I felt I had to stay with the team until like the end, and I was feeling guilty. I had to leave early because at the end of the day, any issues, I had to be there. So I had literally no life. I was with the team, so it didn't matter if you were BIM or architect, you were still doing the same overtime.
But it's because of them, right? So
because,
you just
exactly, yeah. So overall, yeah.
See,
but when
bloody architects, you know.
It was all for that.
You are going in with the daggers, aren't you? you are really going. So basically, in the BIM team, you don't do any overtime, and if you do, it's the architect's fault. So in design manager,
I feel like it's a matter of being organized and know how to manage your plan. Because when I moved to Maze, for instance, like everything completely changed. There is no just to answer that question from my experience. Like the difference on living on time and work-life balance was completely different, and I wouldn't go back to before. So yes, it's all about knowing how to manage your time, your team, and the workload. Because I feel like from an architectural point of view, everything is loaded last minute, and people have to stay over time for a last-minute deadline or so on. So that was my main experience on staying late.
Fair enough. Does anyone, so Michael or Barrett, do you have any, I know because you've gone into not so BIM centric per se, is it akin to architecture, the hours, or is there overtime sometimes in your experience?
I think yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one because I think if I'm allowed to kind of slightly pivot the question and kind of say that,
please,
actually, because of the adoption of hybrid working and working from home a lot now and having a young family, there might be an outward perception that I work overtime because I'm now working a lot more in kind of non-core hour time in order to get my work done, because I might need some quiet time to kind of focus on doing something, and that's after my kids gone to sleep. So a client might be logging in and looking at on a shared database, and they're like, "Wow, you're working until midnight on that. Are you sure you're okay?" And it's actually because I started at 8 p.m. It's just that's the way things have worked out. So in some respects, technology is enabling us to kind of start on a slippery slope to kind of be quite poor with time management. And it starts to become, oh, okay, actually, you know, I've got this in my head now. I can smash out a 16-hour
Yeah,
day.
but that's a slippery slope, right? When you're working from home. Like one thing when we used to work in the office, and I mean, it was so daunting to stay in the office past like 5, and you just
people
want to
see
have
you and then
food.
take you
I don't
home.
know, sit,
That's right.
chill on the sofa. But now, when we're working from home, your work is here at home, so you tempted to work that a little bit extra every day because I mean I'm here anyway. Like I'm just gonna dash another hour. Um, yeah, you have that self-discipline to stop.
Yeah, and it's I think there's that element of it that it means that I think there's always going to be overtime, whichever way you kind of end up splitting it up. I think, but equally because, and Barrett's in the same situation as I am, I physically don't have as much time to do insane overtime anymore. There are no more hours in the day. So I have to just turn my computer off and change a nappy or whatever. And that's kind of brought upon me. So it's not to do with maybe the company culture changing or the corporate culture. It's just my own life situation, meaning that I've got like a red line now. That whereas I was younger as an architect, I just lived for my job, and therefore I was willing to do all these hours because there was nothing else to do.
See, I think the big difference is the journey I've been on. Like, it made me appreciate that when you're working, and I have to make that distinction when you're working early doors as an architect. So as a part 1 or part 2, maybe an early stage part 3, but within design practices. The workflows basically mean you don't have total control of all the end results, and you're participating in a collaborative endeavor to get everything together, right? But by doing so, the task list is enormous, and there's always something more to do. There's always something you can help out on. There's always a betterment that can be made, right? And that's almost setting yourself up to fail. So, similarly to you, Stephen, like I got to a point in my career, and I won't name names. So the thing that there was a turning point for me, really, I got made redundant from architectural practice. That I basically, for a period of something like 3 months, I was working from 7 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, like every single day, giving it everything. And do you know, I don't want to besiege it, because actually the growth I had within that period was enormous, I think.
Yeah.
But when I got made redundant, it was like the worst thing in the world. And
ego blow, isn't it?
It was my brother that turned around and said to me, he's like, why on earth did you do that? Like, when you have your own business, okay, work 24 hours a day, fine. But you're working for yourself and you're investing it in yourself. Why on earth are you doing it for someone else? And actually, that was a real turning point. And actually, I think what should be encouraged more is task management skills. It's about working efficiently. And actually, if the first practice we all worked at taught us how to work efficiently to close out a task, I think we'd all maybe even still be within architecture right now.
Yeah, well
right? But no one teaches you that. No one's sitting there being like. And actually, I think the more you climb the corporate ladder, as it were, and progress with your career, actually you have to be efficient with your tasks.
Yeah.
You have to set hard deadlines, because actually you've either got a dear partner at home, you've got family, you've got children, you've got other things that just mean you can't work outside of it. I think you do work overtime. It's just a different type of overtime that's on your terms and not someone else's necessarily.
Well said. I think you're right in short, and I've been made redundant too, and it is incredibly character building. To me, it was a massive ego part, because you think like it's like health. You think it's never going to happen to me, and then you get made redundant, and then actually, you pick yourself up and you learn a lot. And I think it's a good experience, because I couldn't believe it happened, and now you almost self-protect yourself from that situation. Or if it does happen, you're like, okay, I understand it's not so personal as I once thought. So I completely agree with you. well, because I'm conscious. I mean, I can hang around, but I'm conscious we've all got our lives and family, as you said. So what I was going to do, and Yulia, we can do another one of these at another time as well, so we can continue the conversation, because I know there's a lot more to unpack. But we've talked about, in particular, the joys of moving into something specialist, going into a career which isn't kind of the perception of a typical architect, a traditional architect, a front-end architect, a technical delivery architect. However, is the grass always greener? You know, I've known a lot of people that have gone into design management, and they go there and they get paid more money, and they go, do you know what? I missed the design. That does happen, right? It's not for everyone. And then I've also, you know, when you go into BIM, you've got to be geared for that scenario. You know, you've got to be that person that can be that digital BIM expert. Or
yeah, it's not for everyone. Yeah, definitely not for everyone.
Yeah, so maybe we can go around first, and I'll share my first grass is always greener, because I left architecture specifically for more. I just thought, you know, I wasn't interested in technical details. I wasn't interested in all that stuff. And now, running my own business, I've got to pay attention to the small details, because I will lose money, and there is no one else to blame but me. So ironically, I have to get out the magnifying glass, and so I presented myself a situation where I have to do it, but I enjoy it, and after you do it, I like it. However, grass is always greener. No, I work longer hours than I did in architecture, even though that was one of the reasons I didn't want to do it. And I avoided doing technical drawings in architecture, and now running the business, I'm actually have to do that, because I have to be accountable for my own business. But perhaps you can start off then, Barrett. What do you miss about architecture? Even though you can love what you're doing, is there one little bit that you miss?
I really do. I do love obsessing over the detail. I miss it. I miss having having the leisure and the flexibility to delve into that black hole and just surround yourself by it, because you just you don't get that time. You don't get time to make it perfect. And yeah, I do miss that. I think I've got a bit of ACD on that. But is the grass greener? Yes.
There you go.
100%.
I'll
never go back.
Okay, all right. So no regrets, but you miss a few tidbits. Michael, what do you miss about doing that traditional architecture role?
I mean, to be honest with you, I miss the social element of it. So, you know, on the one sense, we're kind of all kind of up in arms about saying, you know, we have to all grow up, and we have to kind of be you know, adults and take responsibilities and work less hours because we've got family at home and all this kind of stuff. One of the reasons why certainly I really liked working long hours was actually you were surrounded by people kind of like minds, people who were really interesting people that had lots of kind of other kind of side projects and things that they were kind of being creative about, and you could really bounce ideas off them, and you could really kind of, have you gone to this new thing at the art gallery or something, and you'd make time to really have kind of detailed conversations about something to do with the arts or something, which I know is not necessarily unique to architecture, but I know that actually that's not really something that I've experienced since that. It's people are much more about, we're here 9 to 5 to do our jobs, and that's what we're going to do. We don't find half an hour to have a really kind of detailed discussion about the latest Stanley Kubrick movie or something. And that's really showing my age. But that thing I think I will always miss. But at the same time, as I say, it's your job starts to become your life. They blur together. They become your family. You spend all your time with them. You share all of your emotional ups and downs and everything else. And I think as you naturally start getting seniority in a company within an architecture firm, as I found, that starts to ebb away anyway, and you start to less have those kinds of strong relationships with the people that you work with, and then it's all of the kind of negatives of just doing a job and managing, but none of the positives because you don't get paid very well. So it's certainly the grass is greener since I've left.
Fair
Lovely.
enough. Giorgio, did you miss anything in particular, or is the grass always greener? Is it better now than before?
I mean, I totally agree with both Barrett and Michael. For me, the grass is very greener. The only thing I will miss again is all about the people and the work environment. But in terms of job per se and then skills, I don't, not at all. Again, I can't. There was a mistake I was doing on staying in a company because I was feeling comfortable, but I was really unhappy with the role per se, and then I had to make the decision to the people, you can always meet them elsewhere, but I had to focus on what I actually wanted to do. So yeah, I don't really miss anything from that architectural lifestyle I had. And yes, my grass is greener.
Hey, oh God, I'm the only one where the grass wasn't greener, but I still like it. Grass is kind of greener, but I'm saying cautiously, the grass is a lot of hard work. Julia, what do you think? Is the grass always greener, or is there anything you miss? Or what do you think?
Yeah, because I'm not really RB architect here in UK. I think, listen to everything you guys said. How about we make architectural jobs, fulfilling and paid well, so people don't have to move to, consultancies and stuff like that to, to get that, fulfillment from, I'm getting paid where I'm actually worth, it's enough for me to live and pay the energy bills. And also, how about we actually, talk more about this overtime and make it not just so that the BIM team can leave on time, but also the architects. Or, okay, if you really like to work overtime, how about, you paid for that? Or that we plan projects bearing in mind, okay, how much actually we're gonna, spend hours on this project to deliver it for this deadline. I think that's what we really need to focus on. Like, being an architect, I used to treat architects as an artist, right? Just pay them well so they can enjoy their life and stay in architecture. And then I know something needs to be changed here, so people don't have to make these choices. If they really like the design aspect, let them do it. But then maybe we should really adopt and look at other practices, other countries where satisfactory rate and productivity rates are greater than the UK. So, for example, in some of the countries, it's illegal to work overtime. And if you are working overtime, you have to be compensated 25%, for example. Yeah. Or how about actually offering real time in lieu for people that worked and stayed late because of the bad management? That's really, really going to help. So working in Denmark, I stayed a few times late because I really wanted to take that extra project that I was doing on my own. And my land manager said, okay, Julia, you worked overtime this week. How about you leave earlier on Friday? And bear in mind, that's Denmark. They already leave around 4 or 3 on Fridays. So, because working late and working overtime every day doesn't make you more efficient. It doesn't deliver a greater design as per se as well. We're not more productive or more bright if we work extra hours every day. In fact, it's not. There are various studies showing that working you only efficient up to certain amount of hours per day. So
Well,
see, I've got a different thought though, Julia. Opposed to people studying architecture forcing themselves to stay within an industry that's not loving them, or they feel they're not loved enough. I think actually the industry needs to broaden even more. And actually, it goes back to what we were talking about right at the beginning, where I think studying such a broad subject in the first place, you're equipping yourself with so many skills that you don't necessarily realize you're equipping yourself with. That actually people should explore different avenues, things like the metaverse. There's so many things that are going on now that can lend themselves to someone who studied architecture to being so successful. Because ultimately, by shallowing the pool of talent within architectural practices, employers will have no choice but to pay those people better because there'll be far more competition for each job. And actually, by then spreading out that talent across many fields, people can still have those commonalities and share those interests, and actually just broaden the field all in all. And I think that's where things like the ARB and not necessarily ARB, but maybe the RIBA could learn a thing or two in terms of inclusivity, in terms of broadening the envelope, in terms of who could be as a member or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's true. Michael's supply and demand. I was going to say, Will, if you want to get the RIBA to do something, Julia, all you got to do is give him a nudge in a bit, because the next RIB elect is an actual architectural professional who is working in practice, which doesn't own a large architectural practice, right? So one would hope changes in the air. Whether brutal reality will knock us all down a peg, it will be interesting to see how that unravels. I was going to bring up a quick few of the comments now that we're kind of in the wind down, chill out period. The glasses of wine are getting empty, and I know we'll all top up in a bit and all that jazz and go off. But Vice Erica says Julia is on point. There you go. You got a fan. Also goes,
yay.
What does he do right there again? What's he do? I don't know. Design management. He's a senior design manager. But you can rewind and check it out at the start. Yelena asked, is there any legal ways to make money as an architect that's not as a BIM manager? Maybe you've been watching Breaking Bad. You could cook meth, I suppose. Probably not advisable. I don't know. I mean, the content creation, there is definitely loads of ways. And I know people do PJs, which is personal jobs on the side. So I think there's ways to make money. Does anyone have any quick fire ways to make money? Rapid answers?
Move to Dubai.
Move to Dubai. That's wide open. Just move.
Yeah.
What do you think, Michael? Drugs? Is that
I mean... No. I don't really think that's really architecture so much.
No.
It might be, changing people's perceptions, but I think there's kind of. I actually watched your podcast at lunchtime. The doing monetizing content creation. That's probably a good avenue for a few people to get into. I mean, that's probably one which I wish I had enough camera equipment to do. The other one as well, which I always say actually, and I was a bit kind of negative about it, but actually I do encourage people who are just starting on their careers, phone up your old studio leaders and say, do you need a guest support tutor or something? Frankly, with the cost of living crisis, no one's affording that holiday in the Seychelles anymore. So you've got 25 days of holiday, and you could probably put 10 of them down doing some bit of tutoring. And it's actually, I loved doing it. You were challenged by people who were almost empty vessels, who certainly the first years as well, who had all this ambition and excitement about architecture and literally no clue whatsoever how to get there. And they would come out with the craziest suggestions, and you just think some of these kids were brilliant, like amazing ideas, and you were inspired. So extra money and actually kind of made you love architecture a bit more. So that is a legal way to do a bit of extra money generation.
Brilliant. I think we've covered a lot of ground. There's never a way to cover everything, but you know what? This is kind of unscripted chats, and I've actually really enjoyed it. It's probably actually the favorite live stream I've done in recent times. So on that now, I'm going to give a good clap to everyone, especially it's in the evening now. Now the glasses are winding down and stuff. I think this would be a good time to kind of sign off. But just before we go, if anyone wants to say where people can reach out to find you, if there's a message, if they see this video in the future or they've followed you today, how do they get in touch? Barrett, how do we find out how to become a senior design manager, or any burning questions about your old tutors?
Reach out on LinkedIn, and I'll happily help out wherever I can.
Brilliant. Mike, where do we find you, Mike?
LinkedIn, or possibly in the bar at some BIM conference.
Having a BIM beer. Good.
Yeah.
Good one. I'll see you at London Build Expo, and we can drown our sorrows about the state of the architecture industry. There we go. Giorgio, where do we find you?
Yeah, likewise, LinkedIn will be the best place.
Amazing. And Julia, where do we find yourself?
LinkedIn, that's for sure, and the next BIM conference. But on that, builds or what's the other one? BIM Show Live? Any, really. Where's the closest bar? I'm there, yeah.
You're knocking around for a BIM beer as well. Fantastic. Well, I really enjoyed this. I'm going to end the live stream in a second. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this video, then like it. Oh, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll end the live stream here. Thank you so much, everyone, and we will see you on the next time. Take care. Bye-bye.